Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the communication panel. The lights on the control board blinked in patterns he had never seen before. He had been working on this equipment for 3 years, but today something was different. Very different. The UES Freedom floated quietly in the darkness of space, far from Earth and any other human world. They were out here looking for new planets, new resources, maybe even new life. Captain Lisa Hayes had chosen this mission because she believed humans needed to explore beyond their small corner of the galaxy. So far, they had found nothing but empty space and dead rocks. Jake pressed his earpiece closer to his ear. The sound coming through was not the usual static or random noise from distant stars. This had a pattern. It repeated itself every few minutes, like someone was trying to send a message over and over again. "Captain Hayes, to the communication deck, please." Jake spoke into his microphone. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly as he adjusted the controls. Lisa Hayes arrived within minutes. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. The crew respected her because she made quick decisions and never left anyone behind. She had earned her rank fighting in the asteroid mining wars, where hesitation meant death. "What do you have for me, Jake?" she asked, looking at the flashing lights on his panel. "I think someone is trying to talk to us, Captain. This signal has been coming in for the last 2 hours. It's weak, but it's definitely not natural." Lisa leaned over the control panel and listened to the strange sounds coming through the speakers. There were beeps and clicks, but also something that sounded almost like voices. Not human voices, but voices all the same. "Get Kevin Park up here right now," she ordered. Kevin Park was the smartest person on the ship when it came to languages and codes. He could speak 7 human languages, and had created 3 new ones just for fun. If anyone could figure out what this message meant, it would be him. Kevin arrived carrying his portable computer and a cup of coffee that was probably his 5th of the day. He was a thin man with messy black hair and thick glasses that he was always pushing up his nose. "Play it again," he said before anyone could explain what was happening. Jake replayed the signal from the beginning. Kevin listened with his eyes closed, his head tilted to one side like a dog hearing a new sound. After the message repeated 3 times, he opened his eyes and started typing on his computer. "This is incredible," he whispered. "Jake, can you clean up the signal? Remove some of the static?" Jake worked his controls like a piano player, adjusting frequencies and filtering out background noise. Slowly, the message became clearer. What had sounded like random beeps now had rhythm and purpose. The voice-like sounds became more obvious. "There are at least 3 different types of voices here," Kevin said, still typing. "Maybe more, and look at this." He pointed to patterns on his computer screen. "These number sequences appear in the message every few minutes. I think they're star charts." Captain Hayes felt a chill run down her spine. Star charts meant these voices knew where they were. More importantly, it meant they knew where other places were too. "How long until you can translate it?" she asked. "Give me 6 hours, maybe less if I'm lucky." "You have 4 hours. This could be important." Kevin nodded and returned to his work. Captain Hayes called the senior officers to her ready room. Within minutes, Chief Engineer Pete Williams, Weapons Officer Dan Rodriguez, and Medical Officer Susan Kim were sitting around her small table. "We may have made contact with alien life," she told them simply. The room went silent for a long moment. Pete Williams was the first to speak. "Are you sure it's not just some kind of natural phenomenon? Space does weird things to radio signals." Kevin seems certain it's artificial. Multiple species, actually. Dan Rodriguez leaned forward in his chair. "Are they friendly?" "We don't know yet. That's why I wanted to talk to all of you. If this is real, if we really are talking to aliens, we need to be ready for anything." Susan Kim had been quiet during the discussion, but now she spoke up. "Captain, what if they need help? What if this is a distress call?" 3 hours and 47 minutes later, Kevin Park called the senior officers back to the communication deck. His hair was even messier than before, and he had coffee stains on his shirt, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "I've got it," he announced. "It's definitely a distress call. Multiple species calling themselves the Gentle Coalition. They're asking for help from anyone who can receive their message. He played the translated message through the speakers. The voices were different now, speaking in clear English thanks to Kevin's translation program. To anyone who receives this message, we are the Gentle Coalition. Our worlds are under attack by the Harvester fleet. They take our people and destroy our homes. We have tried to fight, but we do not know how. Our weapons are weak. Our ships are slow. If there is anyone out there who can help us, please respond. We are dying. The message included star charts showing the location of Coalition worlds and the path of the Harvester fleet. The nearest Coalition world was only 2 days away at maximum speed. Captain Hayes looked around at her officers. These were good people, brave people, but they were explorers, not warriors. The UES Freedom had weapons, but they were designed to fight pirates and asteroid miners, not an alien fleet. What do we know about these Harvesters? She asked. Kevin pulled up more information on his computer. From what I can understand, they're a predator species. They've been attacking Coalition worlds for decades, taking prisoners and resources. The Coalition species seem to be peaceful. They've never developed military technology. How many ships do we have in this sector? Dan Rodriguez asked. Just us, Captain Hayes replied. The nearest human fleet is 3 weeks away. Pete Williams shook his head. Captain, we can't fight an entire alien fleet by ourselves. We should send a message to Earth Command and wait for reinforcements. Those people will be dead or captured by then, Susan Kim said quietly. If we're going to help them, it has to be now. Captain Hayes stood up and walked to the large window that showed the stars outside. Somewhere out there, alien beings were crying for help. They had sent their message into the darkness, hoping someone would hear them and care enough to respond. She turned back to her officers. Set course for the Coalition coordinates, maximum burn. We're going to answer their call. Jake Morrison looked up from his control panel. Captain, should I send a response message to let them know we're coming? Lisa Hayes smiled for the first time since the message had arrived. Tell them the humans are on their way. As the UES Freedom changed course and accelerated toward the unknown, none of the crew realized they were about to make history. They were about to show the galaxy what humans could do when peaceful beings called for help. The age of easy conquest was about to end, and it would end with humanity's first words to the galaxy. The Deathworlders had heard the call, and they were coming fast. The UES Freedom dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zeta Reticuli system. What Captain Lisa Hayes saw on the main viewing screen made her stomach turn cold. The beautiful blue and green planet below was surrounded by ships that looked like giant insects made of dark metal. These had to be the Harvester ships. My God, whispered Amy Chen from her position at the communications station. She was new to the crew, only 23 years old, and had never seen anything like this before. The Harvester ships were huge, each one at least twice the size of the Freedom. They moved through space like predators hunting prey. Smaller ships, clearly not military vessels, were trying to escape from the planet. Most of them did not make it very far. Jake Morrison watched in horror as one of the fleeing ships was caught by some kind of energy net shot from a Harvester vessel. The small ship was dragged back toward the larger one, its engines firing uselessly as it tried to break free. Captain, I'm reading at least 15 Harvester ships in the immediate area, reported Dan Rodriguez from the weapons station. They're all focused on the planet. I don't think they've noticed us yet. Lisa Hayes had been a military officer for 12 years. She had fought pirates, dealt with terrorist attacks on mining stations, and commanded ships in 3 different conflicts. But she had never seen anything like the systematic destruction happening before her eyes. All hands, battle stations, she announced over the ship's communication system. This is not a drill. We are going into combat. The crew of the Freedom moved quickly to their positions. They had trained for this moment, but training was different from the real thing. Most of them had never fought aliens before. Most of them had never fought anyone before. Captain, said Pete Williams from the engineering station, our weapons are designed for fighting human ships. We don't know if they'll work against alien technology. We're about to find out, Lisa replied. Dan, target the nearest Harvester ship. full spread of missiles. Targeting now, Captain. The first harvester ship to notice the Freedom approached slowly, as if it was curious about this new vessel. It was probably wondering what kind of species had built such a strange-looking ship. The harvester captain likely thought this would be easy prey, just another peaceful species to add to their collection. They were wrong. Fire, Captain Hayes ordered. 6 nuclear-tipped missiles shot out from the Freedom's launch tubes. The harvester ship tried to raise some kind of energy shield, but the human weapons were not like anything they had encountered before. The missiles carried kinetic energy and radiation that the alien shields could not handle. The first missile broke through the shield completely. The second and third missiles hit the ship's hull directly. The fourth missile caused a massive explosion that lit up the darkness of space. The fifth and sixth missiles were not needed. The harvester ship was destroyed in less than 30 seconds. Target destroyed, Captain, Dan Rodriguez reported, his voice filled with amazement. They didn't even return fire. But Captain Hayes was already thinking about the next move. Amy, scan for more harvester ships. Jake, try to contact any coalition survivors in the area. The destruction of one harvester ship had gotten the attention of the others. 3 more ships were now moving toward the Freedom, but they were moving carefully. They had never lost a ship so quickly before. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from one of the damaged coalition ships, Jake announced. Put it on screen. The face that appeared on the main viewing screen was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It looked like a flower that had grown into the shape of a person. Its skin was translucent and seemed to glow with soft colors. Large, compound eyes stared at them with a mixture of fear and hope. I am Bloom of 7 Suns, the alien said through a translation device. Are you the ones who destroyed the harvester ship? Captain Hayes stepped forward. I am Captain Lisa, Hayes of the human vessel Freedom. We received your distress call. Bloom of 7 Suns' glowing patterns changed color rapidly. Humans, we have never heard of your species. How did you destroy a harvester ship so easily? In all our recorded history, no one has ever successfully fought them. We're from a planet called Earth, Lisa explained. We specialize in fighting. The aliens' patterns changed again, this time to what looked like confusion. You specialize in fighting? I do not understand this concept. Before Lisa could explain, Dan Rodriguez called out, Captain, 3 harvester ships approaching fast. They'll be in weapons range in 2 minutes. Bloom of 7 Suns, can your ship move? Lisa asked. Yes, but not quickly. We are a research vessel, not a military ship. We do not have military ships. Get behind us and stay there, Lisa ordered. We'll handle this. The 3 harvester ships attacked together, firing energy beams that lit up space like lightning. But Captain Hayes had been expecting this. The Freedom rolled to the side, avoiding most of the incoming fire. The shots that did hit were absorbed by the ship's armor, which had been designed to survive impacts from asteroids and debris. Return fire, Lisa commanded. This time the humans used a different strategy. Instead of firing missiles directly at the ships, they fired them in a spread pattern that forced the harvesters to choose between collision or separation. When the alien ships moved apart to avoid the missiles, Dan Rodriguez was ready with the Freedom's main energy cannon. 2 more harvester ships were destroyed in the space of 5 minutes. The remaining harvester ships in the system began to retreat. They had never encountered an enemy that could destroy their vessels so easily. The humans fought with a brutality and efficiency that was completely foreign to their experience. Amy, open a channel to all coalition ships in the area, Captain, Hayes ordered. Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Lisa Hayes of the human ship Freedom. All coalition vessels, you are safe now. The harvesters are retreating. Over the next hour, 12 coalition ships approached the Freedom. Each one carried a different species, all of them peaceful beings who had been caught unprepared by the harvester attack. There were the flower-like beings like Bloom of 7 Suns, creatures that looked like living crystals, and others that resembled sea creatures but breathed air. Jake Morrison led a small team over to the Coalition research vessel to establish better communication. What he found amazed him. The ship was beautiful, with flowing curves and soft lights everywhere. It looked more like a work of art than a spacecraft. But it had no weapons, no armor, and no military equipment of any kind. Your ship is very pretty, Jake told Bloom of Seven Suns as they walked through the corridors. Thank you. We built it to study the beauty of the universe. We never thought we would need to fight anyone. Why not? Jake asked. Bloom of Seven Suns' patterns shifted to what Jake was learning meant sadness. On our world, there is no conflict. We have enough resources for everyone. We solve problems by discussion and cooperation. The concept of war is foreign to us. Jake thought about Earth, where humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. Wars over territory, resources, religion, and ideas. Humans had learned to fight because they had to. These beings had never needed to learn. That's about to change, Jake said quietly. When Jake returned to the Freedom, he reported to Captain Hayes. Captain, these beings are completely defenseless. They have advanced technology, but they've never built weapons. They don't even understand the concept of military strategy. Lisa Hayes nodded. Then we're going to have to teach them. Teach them what, Captain? How to survive in a galaxy where predators exist. How to fight back. How to protect themselves and their people. Amy Chen looked up from her station. Captain, I'm receiving more distress calls. The Harvesters are attacking other Coalition worlds. There are dozens of them. Captain Hayes looked at her small crew and then at the Coalition ships on the viewing screen. 200 humans against an empire of alien predators. The odds were impossible. But humans had always been good at beating impossible odds. Signal, all Coalition ships, she commanded. Tell them we're going to teach them something new. We're going to teach them how to fight back. The first lesson of the Deathworld Academy was about to begin. 3 days after the first battle, the UES Freedom had become the center of the largest gathering of alien ships in known history. Coalition vessels from dozens of worlds had arrived to meet the humans who had done the impossible. They had defeated. The Harvesters. Captain Lisa Hayes stood in the main meeting room of the Freedom, surrounded by holographic images of alien leaders. Each species looked different from the others, but they all shared the same expression of desperate hope, mixed with confusion. We do not understand how you defeated them so easily, said Crystal that sings, a being made of living rock whose voice sounded like wind chimes. We have tried to fight the Harvesters for 50 years. Our weapons barely scratch their ships. Dr. Susan Kim, the Freedom's chief strategist, had been studying the Coalition's military records for the past 3 days. What she found explained everything. The problem is not your technology, Susan told the assembled aliens. Your ships are actually more advanced than ours in many ways. The problem is how you think about fighting. I do not understand, replied Gentle Current, an aquatic being whose tank was filled with blue water. Fighting is fighting. You point weapons at the enemy and fire. No, Susan said firmly. That's target practice. Fighting is about making the enemy afraid. Fighting is about doing things they don't expect. Fighting is about winning before the battle even starts. Pete Williams had been working around the clock with Coalition engineers to understand their technology. What he discovered amazed him. The Coalition had weapons that could destroy planets, but they had never used them in war. They had ships that could travel faster than anything humans had built, but they used them only for exploration. Your people are too nice, Pete explained to a group of Coalition engineers. You design weapons that are clean and efficient. You design ships that are beautiful and comfortable, but you don't design them to be scary. Why would we want to be scary? Asked one of the engineers, a spider-like being called Weaver of Light. Because scared enemies make mistakes, Pete replied. And when your enemy makes mistakes, you win. The humans began teaching the Coalition species lessons that seemed obvious to people from Earth, but were revolutionary to beings from peaceful worlds. They taught them about deception, about ambush tactics, about psychological warfare. Commander Tony Clark, the head of the Freedom's Marine Unit, worked with Coalition security forces to teach them close combat techniques. Most of the aliens had never touched another being in anger before. The first rule of hand-to-hand combat, Tony told a group of flower-like beings, is that there are no rules. If someone is trying to kill you, you do whatever it takes to stop them. But that seems so uncivilized, said one of them. Being dead is more uncivilized, Tony replied. The most difficult lesson was teaching the coalition species to think like predators. Dr. Kevin Park worked with their military planners to develop new strategies. Your current battle plans are too predictable, Kevin explained to a gathering of coalition commanders. You line up your ships in neat formations and attack head-on. The harvesters always know what you're going to do. How should we attack? Asked Commander Brightwing, whose people looked like large butterflies with metallic wings. From behind. From the side. From places they don't expect. And most importantly, all at the same time from different directions. The humans showed them recordings of Earth's military history. The coalition commanders watched in fascination and horror as human armies used tricks, traps, and surprise attacks to defeat larger forces. Your species has been fighting for your entire history, observed Gentle Current after watching a documentary about World War II. How do you function as a society? We learn to work together against common enemies, Captain Hayes explained. Humans fight each other, but when something threatens all of us, we unite. This is the concept we need to teach your people, added Susan Kim. Individual species fighting alone will always lose to the harvesters, but all species fighting together as one force can win. The transformation began slowly. Coalition engineers started redesigning their ships with human help. Instead of smooth, elegant curves, the new vessels had sharp angles and dark colors. Instead of being beautiful, they were designed to look threatening. Pete Williams supervised the installation of new weapon systems on coalition vessels. The aliens had always used precise, low-powered energy beams that disabled enemy systems without causing permanent damage. The humans taught them to use massive, overwhelming firepower that destroyed targets completely. But what if we want to capture the enemy ship instead of destroying it? Asked one coalition engineer. Then you destroy it anyway, Pete replied. Dead enemies can't fight back later. The coalition species that had spent centuries being hunted by the harvesters began to think differently about survival. The crystal beings learned to hide in asteroid fields and ambush passing ships. The aquatic species developed new tactics for underwater combat on water worlds. The flower-like beings discovered they could use their natural camouflage abilities for military purposes. Amy Chen worked with coalition communication officers to develop new codes and encryption methods. The harvesters had always been able to intercept coalition messages because the peaceful species had never thought to hide their communications. From now on, Amy told them, assume the enemy is listening to everything you say. Never give them information they can use against you. The most important change was psychological. Species that had accepted defeat as inevitable began to believe they could win. The humans had shown them that the harvesters were not invincible. They could be beaten. Jake Morrison spent his time listening to reports from across coalition space. The news was getting worse. The harvesters were expanding their attacks, sensing that something had changed. They were moving faster now, trying to capture as many worlds as possible before whatever had destroyed their ships could spread. Captain, Jake reported during a staff meeting, the harvesters are accelerating their timeline. Intelligence suggests they're planning a major offensive against the Coalition's core worlds. How long do we have? Lisa asked. Maybe 2 weeks before they launch their main attack. Lisa looked around at her officers. They had been working without rest for days, teaching an entire civilization how to wage war. The Coalition species were learning quickly, but were they learning fast enough? What's the status of the new Coalition fleet, she asked. Dan Rodriguez pulled up tactical displays showing the reformed Coalition forces. We've got about 800 ships now, all retrofitted, with human weapons and tactics. The crews are still learning, but they're improving fast. And the harvesters? Intelligence estimates they'll bring at least 500 ships to the main battle. Possibly more. Susan Kim studied the numbers. In a straight fight, we should be able to win. But the harvesters won't give us a straight fight. They'll use their experience and their knowledge of Coalition space against us. Captain Hayes made a decision that would change the course of the war. Then we don't give them time to think. We hit them first, we hit them hard, and we hit them everywhere at once. A preemptive strike? Tony Clark asked. More than that. We're going to teach these coalition species the most important human military doctrine of all, which is? Lisa Hayes smiled grimly. Total war. When you're fighting for survival, you don't just defeat the enemy's army. You destroy their ability to make war completely. The final lesson of the Deathworld Academy was about to begin. The gentle species of the coalition were about to learn what humans meant when they said they specialized in fighting. The galaxy was about to discover why Earth was called a death world. The Battle of the Trinary Stars would be remembered as the day the galaxy changed forever. 3 suns burned in the center of the star system, their light reflecting off the hulls of nearly 1,300 warships facing each other across the void of space. On one side, the Harvester fleet hung in perfect formation, 500 ships arranged in precise geometric patterns, each one a masterpiece of predatory design. They had come to end the rebellion once and for all. Their commander, a being known only as the Prime Harvester, had never lost a battle in 40 years of conquest. On the other side, 800 coalition ships waited in formations that would have seemed chaotic to the Harvesters. The vessels no longer looked like the peaceful exploration ships they had once been. Human engineering had transformed them into weapons of war, bristling with armor and guns. Captain Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Freedom, which had taken position at the center of the coalition fleet. Around her, officers from a dozen different species worked at control stations that had been redesigned for war. All ships report ready, Captain, announced Amy Chen from the communication station. Her voice was steady, but Lisa could see the tension in her shoulders. Harvester fleet is moving into attack formation, reported Dan Rodriguez from Weapons Control. They're doing exactly what we expected them to do. The Harvesters attacked as they always did, with overwhelming force directed at the strongest point of the enemy line. It was a tactic that had worked for decades against coalition forces that fought defensively and tried to minimize casualties. But the coalition had learned new lessons from their human teachers. Execute Plan Wolverine, Captain Hayes ordered. What happened next shocked the Harvester commanders. Instead of meeting their attack head-on, the coalition fleet scattered in all directions. Ships that had been grouped together suddenly spread out across the entire star system. The neat battle lines dissolved into apparent chaos. The Harvesters found themselves attacking empty space, while coalition ships attacked them from behind, from the sides, and from angles they had never considered. The beautiful formations that had served the Harvesters so well became death traps as they found themselves surrounded. First phase complete, Dan Rodriguez reported as explosions lit up the darkness around them. Harvester formation is broken. But Captain Hayes was watching a different part of the battle. While the main fleets engaged each other, smaller human ships were moving toward the largest Harvester vessels. These were boarding parties, a concept so alien to galactic warfare that the Harvesters had no defense against it. Sergeant Kelly Murphy led the first boarding team aboard a Harvester command ship. She and her squad of 12 humans moved through corridors that had been designed for beings much larger than humans. The architecture was all wrong, with sharp angles and surfaces that seemed designed to cause pain. Remember the mission, Kelly told her team through the communication system. We're not here to capture the ship. We're here to free the prisoners. The Harvesters had never imagined that an enemy would actually try to board their ships during combat. They had no security protocols for internal threats. Kelly's team moved through the vessel like ghosts, avoiding the crew and heading for the detention levels. What they found in the lower decks made even the hardened human soldiers sick with anger. Thousands of coalition beings were crammed into holding cells, many of them barely alive. Some had been prisoners for years, waiting to be processed for whatever horrible fate the Harvesters had planned for them. This is Murphy to all boarding teams. Kelly spoke into her radio. The prisoners are in worse shape than we thought. We need medical teams standing by. But the real shock came when Kelly began freeing the prisoners. These beings, who had been written off as lost by their governments, were not broken. They were angry. "Give us weapons," demanded one of the crystal beings, his normally peaceful chimes now harsh with rage. "Let us fight these monsters." Kelly smiled grimly and handed him a human assault rifle. "Stay behind us and follow our lead." The Harvester, Ships began exploding from within as freed prisoners joined the human boarding teams. Beings who had spent months or years in captivity now fought with a fury that the harvesters could not understand or contain. But the masterstroke of the battle was happening far from the main engagement. While everyone's attention was focused on the fleet action, Captain Hayes had been coordinating something much larger. "Amy, give me a channel to all Coalition worlds," Lisa commanded. "Channel open, Captain." "Execute Operation Sunrise," she announced. Across the galaxy, Coalition forces that had been hiding and preparing for weeks suddenly struck at harvester bases, supply depots, and reinforcement fleets. The gentle species that had spent decades running from the harvesters now attacked 100 targets simultaneously. The aquatic beings of the water worlds used their new submarine tactics to destroy harvester underwater facilities. The crystal beings created avalanches that buried harvester mining operations. The flower-like beings used their natural camouflage to infiltrate harvester communication centers and destroy them from within. Commander Tony Clark, leading Coalition ground forces on a captured harvester base, watched as species that had never fought before worked together like a perfect machine. "This is incredible," he told Captain Hayes over the radio. "These beings are natural soldiers. They just needed someone to show them how." The harvester fleet in the Trinary star system found itself cut off from all support. Their supply lines were gone. Their reinforcements were under attack. Their bases were captured or destroyed. Prime Harvester, commanding from his flagship, could not understand what was happening. In 40 years of conquest, he had never faced an enemy that could think beyond the immediate battle. The Coalition was fighting a war on a galactic scale, something his predatory mind could not comprehend. "Sir," reported one of his officers, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different sector commands. Our entire infrastructure is under attack." Prime Harvester stared at the tactical displays showing the collapse of his empire. These had been peaceful species, beings that could barely defend themselves just weeks ago. How had they become so dangerous so quickly? The answer came when he saw the small human ship moving toward his flagship. Humans. The unknown species that had taught the Coalition how to fight. The beings from the death world that had changed everything. "Retreat," he ordered. "All ships, retreat to home system immediately." But there was nowhere to run. The Coalition forces had learned the most important human lesson of all. When you're fighting for survival, you finish the job completely. The harvester fleet that had terrorized the galaxy for decades was destroyed in a single day. Of the 500 ships that had come to end the rebellion, only 50 escaped to their home system. The rest were captured, destroyed, or converted to Coalition use. Captain Hayes watched the last harvester ships disappear into hyperspace. The battle was over, but the war would continue until the harvesters could never threaten anyone again. "Amy, send a message to all Coalition worlds," she ordered. "Ready, Captain. Tell them the harvesters are finished. Tell them they're free. And tell them that Earth stands with them." Jake Morrison looked up from his communication station. "Captain, we're receiving thousands of messages from Coalition worlds. They're all saying the same thing." "What's that?" "Thank you." The gentle species of the galaxy had learned to fight back, and in doing so, they had discovered something they never knew they possessed: the strength to protect themselves and others. The age of easy conquest was over. The Deathworlders had kept their promise. When the Gentle called for help, the warriors of Earth had answered, and they had taught the galaxy a new lesson about the price of freedom. The universe would never be the same.